Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can create customized roles within Azure, right? So why we need the custom roles or customized roles in order to give some access levels. Some as in it could be a particular specific limited access to manage a particular resource within Azure environment. And that is really needed because it is not something, or it could not be the something when someone from the team, or be it internal team, external team, client or partners, or anyone who is working on the project or specific task, we cannot give them the complete a full permission or full access on it, right? Instead, we should create a specific role which has only limited scoped permissions that we should give them to manage that particular task or project or whatever the work that they are going to do. And then we should go ahead and assign it to them, right? And this is when we can limit down the permission level, which is also part of our privileged uh, or least privileged access levels, which also becomes part of zero trust capabilities, right? And we should not give the 100% or full role instead of or whatever is not really needed, right? It should be something we should only give the access whatever they need, and basis on the role or the permissions that we are going to assign is going to provide them to do the certain tasks or privileges to do the same thing, right? And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. And this is really helpful. And you might have seen such many videos, or maybe you have gone through some tutorials, articles, but definitely I'm going to show you in Azure context. And definitely it is available on different cloud solutions, different cloud platforms, be it AWS, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, then Azure, definitely it is there. And even it is available within the Microsoft Entra ID as well, because in Entra ID as well, there are different roles. Those are built-in roles, and we can create customized roles on top of those built-in roles so that we can leverage those roles to streamline the roles and permissions, and then we can assign those roles to manage different operations, different access levels, different performance, right? And then those can be managed and used for the different roles within the organization, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'll simply share my screen and you can see that what I'm going to do. All right. So I am here on the Azure portal. I'll just simply go back, and so here you can see this is the Azure portal, and I'm going to start from the scratch to show you how we can go about it. So here's the access control IAM, and from here we need to click on add and add custom role, right? So this is very important. And then here are few steps. You can see at the top, basics, permissions, actionable scopes, JSON, and review plus create, right? So these are the 5 steps we can say. And we really need to take actions within first second. And maybe if in case we wanted to scope it down to a limited level, maybe a kind of particular resource group, particular uh, subscription or management group or whatever it is, then you can do that from there as well. And if not, then simply you should keep it as is, whatever it is picking up from the default, right? So now I'm going to create a role specifically for Azure automation. And there are many different permissions that we can add. I'm going to show you those as well here, but I'm going to create for Azure automation. So I'm going to give it a name like Azure automation role, right? So this way it is easy to identify and understand. And here you can also give some description to identify what that role belongs to, what it is going to do, and it's going to be easy for you to understand. And next we have baseline permissions, right? So under the baseline permissions, we have 3 different options. The first is clone a role. That means if we have similar existing role, we can clone all the permissions and capabilities that are added already in that role. And those permissions will be mapped to this role as well. And we can create it ahead. Then start from scratch. That means we are building this role from scratch, we need to add appropriate permissions and exclude appropriate permissions as well, because we don't want everything to be added in this role. That means we have some work there too. And the last option is start from JSON. So JSON is something which is going to be give us a programmatical way to be identify to modify that, and then add the different permissions. Maybe we wanted to add some permissions, we wanted to exclude some permissions, and we can go ahead and do that. So for now, I'm not going to select any other options except start from scratch option, and then click next button here. Right. So in the permissions tab here, you can see there are two options for us, which is add permissions and exclude permissions. So under both options, we have to add permissions majorly into the add permissions button or section here, because we are going to scope down permissions on a particular level. And we don't want to add anything excluded under exclude, but definitely we can do that as well. And we can only give the appropriate permissions instead of adding everything together. So here is the button to add permissions. Also from here, you can also add permissions. So I'm going to click add permissions. And here you can see there are different sections available for us to choose as a permissions, right? So if you were to create permissions or customize roles for each of these different permission sections, then you can imagine that how many roles would be created there, right? And maybe that would be difficult to manage each and every time, right? And it totally depends on the requirements, how organization and teams are managing the roles and management of different resources within the organizations, right? So definitely we have options to create customized roles, and we can leverage those effectively as and when needed, and we can make use of those. So now I'm going to create it for Azure automation. So I'm going to search here automation, and here you can see I got Microsoft automation option, and along with other options which are matching with automation keywords somewhere in their particular roles and permissions. That's what other options are also visible for us. So I'm going to click on the automations here, and you can see that once I click on it, you see we got bunch of permissions. So these are all the permissions which are relevant to Azure automation, and those are not 100% to the automation, but each permission has something or the other permissions which are managed as well as which are relevant to the Azure automation role or Azure automation in short, right? And then we can use those for different scopes or different requirements. Now I get the options to select only the particular permissions. Let's say I wanted to select the first one, which says author, register the subscription to Azure automation. Now, if I wanted to select only this particular permission, I would be able to select it and add it. And I don't need any other permissions. So I am not going to add anything, right? Similarly, I can select other permissions as well as and when needed. And that should be fine for my requirements. And I can simply create it, and then I can go ahead and use that for my different use cases, right? So this way we can add the permissions. So now I'm going to simply uh, add these permissions only, and I'm not going to add any other permissions from this list, because there are a bunch of permissions, and maybe those are kind of, or those may become over permissioning for this role that I'm trying to create and assign it to a particular uh, team member within the organizations who is going to perform certain actions on Azure automation, right? And then that particular person is going to work on that task maybe regularly or once in a week or a few times in a month, right? So this way we can limit down and drill down the permission levels. And click on the add button here. So once you add it, you can see all those list out or all those permissions listed out here, and it should be good for us to move to the next step. So here you see the permissions, the description, and the actions of it, and then you get option to delete in case you are not comfortable, you wanted to delete something or any specific permissions. You can simply come here and click on this delete icon or delete button. And let's move to the next. Under actionable scopes, you see that where this is going to be added, or this permission or this role is going to be created on what scope, right? So from here we can define this scope as well. So now what does this mean is that here you can see that once you click on this button, we get the options to add a scope on management groups, subscription, and resource groups, right? Where this role is going to be available for the assignments, and this role must be at least have one actionable scopes. So that's the minimum requirement. It should have at least minimum one scope levels where we can assign this group or this customized role. If I discard this one, I would get an option to add actionable scope. Either I can select it on management group level, or I can select it on subscription, or I can select it on resource group, right? So if I were to select on a resource group, I can see the list out of resource groups from my Azure subscription. And then if I have to select the resource group, then or the subscription, the whole subscription is going to be part of this. If not, then I need to select the management group, and then I need to select which management group. You can see there are 3 different management groups I have created in the Azure subscription, right? So if I'm going to select the first one, then it's going to be added and I can add it here. So now you can see that it is added on both level, subscription and management group level, right? So this way it is going to be added basis on that. Also, I can discard any one of those which is not needed, right? So it is easy for us to limit down and take the appropriate actions. Now we are good here. We should go to the next. Under JSON, you can see that the JSON format or the JSON template of this customized role, you can see where we can see the actionable scopes is added on subscription level with a subscription ID, and then the properties, role name, description. And the very important part of this is the permissions, right? And where you see all the actions which are part of this permission scope that we have added, right? And then if in case you do not want to add any of these permissions, then you can add those here. Now, or this is a part of excluded permissions, exclusion in short, right? So there are 3 steps for us if we are going to do using JSON. One is not action, data actions, and not data actions, right? So we can add those permissions under each of these, and then we should be able to exclude that permissions from this role, right? So this way we can go ahead and edit this from here and then add any exclusion that we wanted to, and we should be good here too. So let's go ahead and click next here. And at the end, you see that the summary, the review plus create, the basic details and the permissions that we have added, plus actionable scopes, which is very important again in this. And once we are ready with this one, we should go ahead and create this role. So I'm going to create it now, and it should be created. Okay, yeah. Here it has given a prompt saying that you are successfully created. It may take the system few minutes to display on your role. So it's going to be taking few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and then it is going to showcase. I am going to simply refresh this page, and then it should be visible for us. Just wait for a minute or two. All right, so we can go ahead and see. So now I wanted to add that role, so I'll simply go ahead and or assign that role, I'll simply click on add role assignments from here. And from here, I will simply search for that role. Perfect. Here's the role. You can see Azure Automation role. And I had given a description. And then here you can see the type of role is custom role. I did not mention any category here, so it is none. And if I wanted to see the definition of this role, I can simply click on this and you can see all the permissions are added here. And part of this role, from here you can see actions and data actions. So we have only assigned actions, but we have not assigned any data actions in this role. So there is nothing here, right? If I wanted to go to JSON and see what is there, so we can see the JSON representation of this role from the subscription level, right? And then the properties and permissions and exclusion, if there are any. And under the assignments, we can assign this role from here as well to any user or any group if we wanted to. And if we are not ready, or we can assign it from other locations or other ways as I showed you. So let's select from here and click next. So from here, we can select users, groups, and service principals to assign this role, or if not, then managed identity is the way to assign as well. And I'm going to select a particular user from this list. I wanted to assign this role to, and then let's wait for it to populate correctly. All right, so I selected this identity and it is ready for us to assign this. So you can add any description you wanted to, and you can see that this role is going to be assigned to this user account, right? And click next. So here under the assignment type, we can see that eligible with a recommended, active where member can use this role at any time, and then assignment durations, which we can set it up basis on the requirement. So why this assignment duration is given here? Because this is a part of just-in-time access, right? A kind of a JIT, kind of a part of privilege identity management, right? And then we can also update the policy for this role assignments, right? So by using this method, it is going to really give us the control of that role and permissions, whoever is going to get this role, and they can perform the actions. So now eligible and active, these are the two options for us if in case I wanted to assign this role to a particular user on a continuous basis, then this role is going to be or it should be active, and then we can set it either permanent or time bound, right? So if I'm going to set it to time bound, then I have options to set start and end date with a particular time period, and then a role is going to be active for that particular duration. If I don't want it to set it up that way, then I should be selecting it on a permanent level or permanent options, and it should be ready for us that this role is going to be permanent for that particular user, and they can simply go ahead and use it, right? So these are the options which are really helpful and great ways to manage the roles and permissions, and we can use it appropriately too. So I'm going to select it for now as active and permanent, and it should be ready. So we are ready to assign this role. Click review plus assign button, and it is going to assign this role to that particular user. All right. So this is added, you can see here, and it has assigned correctly. Now I wanted to see that role, whether that role is assigned to my identity, right? So I'm going to click here under the role assignments, and then I will gradually move or scroll down a bit here, and it is going to, or it should show up perfect. Here it is showing. You can see this role, Azure Automation role, and this resource on the subscription level, and which is set to active on permanent level, right? And you can see that it is assigned to a user account, right? If you are to see whether it is on service principal or group, you would see something like this. So this is on service principal with the contributor permissions, with the active and permanent capability or active and permanent time period. And this way we can see which role is assigned to what identity, and then we can go ahead and manage it appropriately, right? So yeah, that's all for this video. Hope you will like it. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And yep, thanks for watching. Bye for now.